Bathed in the awful illumination of the artifact, Lord Aldrich Jitan's face was terrible to behold. His lust for what the Necromancer had promised him erased all vestiges of humanity from his aspect.
Get it done with, then.
He all but hissed. But Caribitis instead looked to the side, to the shadows. His own countenance was a mask, revealing nothing about his true emotions.
He is here. Who? That damn Zayl again?
Aldrich looked to several of the creatures who immediately broke ranks and, with meaning and angry hiss, headed for the entrance.
He is closing. He has no choice but to use the path by which we came. He will not simply walk in. There will be spells he will set into play. In fact, I must commend him. He is here already. I see nothing. But you will.
Caribitis made a gesture in the air. A needle-sharp lance of bone, the talon of Tragel, materialized before him. It shot forth in the direction in which the Rathmanian had been gazing. As the talon reached the entrance, there was a rippling in the air. Outlined in it was a cloaked and hooded form. A cloaked and hooded form through whose chest the talon now buried itself. Lord Jitan grinned.
Ah!
Three of the remaining servants rushed forward to see if the target somehow still lived. Sacrificial dagger in hand, Caribitis stepped from the altar.
Most curious. He is certainly dead, but I still sense his living presence.
The noble also moved closer to the still body.
He must be dead. No one could survive.
A harsh cry filled the chamber. Aldrich, Caribitis, and the servants spun around seeking the source. A huge chunk of marble crashing down on several of Lord Aldrich Jitan's followers. Caribitis let out a curse and brought up his own cloak just as the dead body suddenly shriveled to a pungent cloud burst of putrid remains. The cloud tripled in size in mere seconds, enveloping several of the creatures who was immune on the place. The newest of them hissed and let out a hacking sound. It managed to turn from what remained of the corpse, then fell limply to the floor. Two more had only time to register the first deaths before they, too, collapsed from the stable. At the same time, Zayl and Sardak charged out from one of the shadow corners of the chamber, appearing so suddenly that they seemed to have walked through the very stone. The cloak of Zayl reached out, and from the crumpled figure that Caribitis had assumed, something arose under the voluminous garment. As it flew up, it carried with it the cloak, revealing that what had been thought human had been, in fact, another of Aldrich's mutated men. A dagger wound in the back revealed that the creature had been dead long before the talon had impaled it. Sardak drove his blade through another monster, then stepped up by his sister's side. Slain! Slain! Wake up! Lord Jitan turned at the call.
You leave her be, you tavern rat. She's ours.
Swearing, Sardak lunged at the noble. Although he held a powerful artifact in his hands, Aldrich reacted instinctively, diving away from the thrust. Turning back to his sister, Sardak slapped Celine hard. She moaned and turned her head toward him, but otherwise did not respond. Like a shroud or specter, Zayl's cloak, held aloft by his dagger, returned to the Necromancer. He pulled the black garment free, and then tossed it over his shoulders. As if alive, the cloak dressed itself over him, and even as the dagger returned to his hand, Zayl had used the blade, tied to his left, to distract his foe. He had known that the other Rathmanian would sense that life force and assumed, logically, that since there was no other entrance, it had to be Zayl. Of course, neither Caribitis nor Lord Jitan had known about the secret priest tunnel in the back, one with which the Night Howler was apparently very familiar. It had enabled the rescuers to sneak in so close. There were many questions Zayl had concerning the Night Howler and his fortuitous actions, but for now, they had to wait. Not just Celine's, but their own lives were still very much in danger. Sure enough, even as he thought that, he saw Caribitis, the hem of his cloak still over his nose and mouth, draw a circle, add 2 slashes across it. Zayl felt his strength failing, and immediately countered with the same symbol, while adding a 3rd slash perpendicular to the others and dividing the circle perfectly. His strength immediately returned. A shadow abruptly loomed over Zayl's foe. Caribitis glanced up, then threw himself as far as he could from where he had been standing. Another chunk of marble crushed on the floor, barely missing him. Even as the missile landed, the Night Howler fell upon the children of Astrogha, pummeling one to jelly with a single blow. 2 others leapt atop him, biting down hard, but their vicious fangs could not pierce the thick hide, and their poison simply stained the fur. Zayl joined Sardak. "Take her from here, quick! I can't wake her! She'll have to be carried!" "Let me see." The Necromancer leaned close. Such a spell was not among those taught to novices, but over the years Zayl, like Caribitis, had learned several on his own. Rothmanians accepted any spellwork that aided the balance, provided it did not cause the caster to become corrupted. He put his right hand, still gloved, over her face. An intake of breath from Sardak was a grim reminder that what lay within the glove would not soon be forgotten. Zayl quickly muttered words of a spell that, in its original incarnation, had been designed to summon a shade from its eternal slumber. He had long ago modified that spell, so now it performed a more simple awakening, stirring to consciousness those under enchantments. But the only trouble was, it did not always work. This time, Astrogha was with him. Celine moaned, and her eyes fluttered open. She promptly screamed,
Look out!
Aldric Jitan, the moon of the spider still blazing in his hands, glared like an angry deity at the trio. Sardak threw himself at the treacherous noble before Jitan could unleash whatever vicious spell he planned. The point of his sword buried deep in his foe's shoulder, causing the other to howl and nearly drop the sinister artifact. But in protecting Zayl and Celine, Sardak left himself open. Distracted by his target, leaving no feeble to attack the 2 to his side. The 8-limbed horror seized Celine's brother and tore him from the ground before Zayl could react. The fangs sank into Sardak's throat.
Sardak!
Celine cried, raising a hand to her brother.
Oh, Sardak, no!
From her outstretched palm erupted bolt of fire. He soared across the chamber, striking Sardak's fiendish assailant with such force that it ripped the creature from the floor. Sardak himself wasn't touched by the force flung by his sister, as the fiery mass that had once been one of Jitan's servants collided with a far wall. Sardak clutched at his throat and stumbled back a few steps. Celine pulled from Zayl's grip. On unsteady legs, she ran to her brother, catching him just as he was about to collapse. The Necromancer tried to follow her, but suddenly 2 of the dead monstrosities pushed themselves up and closed in on her. Glancing past them, Zayl saw Caribitis, his expression detached, holding his dagger, and gesturing not only at the risen pair, but others slain by the intruders. Cursing, Zayl thrust for the head of the first undead. As the blade sank deep, the creature shuddered, then went limp. At which point the second undead twitched and promptly exploded. With a cry, Zayl flew back against the altar, striking with such force that every bone shook. Head throbbing, vision unfocused, he could do nothing but lay where he was, in confusion that was in his mind. It slowly registered to him that once more Caribitis had proven the woollier one, raising the dead, then unleashing the violent energies of a slain corpse. In truth, the 2 prolonged attack was a sinister variation on Zayl's own spell, expertly played. Through blurred eyes, the Necromancer surveyed the scene. The rescue had now very much gone awry. Sardak lay dying in Celine's arms, she oblivious to a grim Caribitis approach. The Night Howler was now a swarm with Lord Jitan's fiendish creatures, so much so that they had at last brought the beast to his knees. Zayl himself was still unable to rise or do anything to aid his companions. Jitan started towards Lean, but Caribitis pointed at the Night Howler, commanding,
Deal with that thing. I will make the woman ready.
The noble grinned, clutching the moon of the spider tight. Aldric pointed at the fur giant. But as he did, a brilliant light suddenly flashed in front of him. Lord Jitan let out a growl and used the artifact to shield his eyes. At the same time, the Night Howler somehow found the strength to stand. With an ear-shattering roar, he threw his attackers from him as if they were nothing. One that managed to cling on, he tore off by the neck, then tossed with all his might to the floor. A single slam with his final foe, a lifeless pile. Forest Dweller's ferocious gaze fixed on Zayl's rival, whose attention was on Celine. Hefting the crushed body, he aimed at the armored figure, but as if warned by some sixth sense, Caribitis turned and saw the corpse flying toward him. Once again, he threw himself to safety, but as he did, the Night Howler ran to Zayl. One meaty hand picked up the helpless Necromancer. Yes, Zayl. Not me. The others. Seeming to obey, the giant ran to Celine and her brother. However, with one arm already filled, he could take only the noble woman.
Sardak!
She cried.
I can't leave him!
Her protest went unheeded by her rescuer. With two humans in hand, the Night Howler raced for the front entrance.
After them.
Zayl heard Caribitis shout.
Send the creatures after them, my lord.
There was an angry bark from Aldric Jitan, then a series of eager hisses marking the charge of his servants. Zayl tried to call to the Night Howler, but his words came out as little more than a croak. They left the temple for the dark sanctuary of the forest. Behind them, the children of Astrogha gave chase. Aware that he could do nothing else at the moment, Zayl finally surrendered to the Night Howler's will. He heard Celine sobbing for her brother, and regret filled him. Sardak had proven a brave, capable man, one who had thought nothing of sacrificing himself for a half-sibling born to privileges that had been denied him in his youth. The Wrathmanian's head suddenly jerked up. A half-sibling, at least partly of the same blood.